What if the language your great-grandparents only used for prayer suddenly became the living, breathing tongue of an entire nation, and it all started with one family's radical decision to speak it at home? In the late 19th century, the world was changing. Empires rose and fell, cities grew, and new ideas swept across continents. But in the small towns and crowded cities of Eastern Europe, a different kind of revolution was quietly taking shape. A revolution of words, memory, and hope. For centuries, Hebrew had been the language of prayer and study, its letters flowing across the pages of ancient texts. In synagogues from Vilna to Baghdad, children learned to read the Torah in Hebrew, their voices rising in song and recitation. But outside the walls of the synagogue, Hebrew was silent. In daily life, Jews spoke Yiddish, Ladino, Russian, Arabic, and dozens of other tongues. Hebrew was a language of the past, a language of scholars and saints, not of shopkeepers or children at play. Yet, in the heart of one man, a dream began to grow. His name was Eliezer Ben-Yehuda, and he was born in the year 1858 in the small town of Luzhki, in what is now Belarus. As a boy, Eliezer was a prodigy, devouring books and mastering languages with ease. He loved Hebrew, the sound of it, the history woven into every word, but he also saw its silence, its distance from the world of the living. As a young man, Eliezer moved to Paris to study medicine. There, he was swept up in the currents of nationalism and revolution. He read about the struggles of other peoples to reclaim their languages and cultures, and he began to dream of a Jewish homeland, a place where Hebrew would not just be read, but spoken. In the year 1881, Eliezer and his young wife, Devorah, set out for the land of their ancestors. They arrived in Jerusalem, a city of narrow streets and ancient stones, where Jews, Arabs, and Christians lived side by side. The city was alive with languages Arabic in the markets, Ladino in the courtyards, Yiddish in the synagogues. But Hebrew was still a language of prayer, not of life. Eliezer was determined to change that. He believed that a people could not truly return to their land without returning to their language. He set out to make Hebrew a living tongue, a language for mothers and fathers, for children and workers, for laughter and argument and love. The task was daunting. Hebrew had not been spoken as a daily language for nearly 2,000 years. There were no words for train, newspaper, or ice cream. The grammar was ancient, the vocabulary limited. Many people thought Eliezer was mad, a dreamer chasing an impossible goal. But Eliezer was stubborn. He began at home, insisting that only Hebrew be spoken in his house. When his son, Ben Zion, was born in the year 1882, Eliezer and Devorah raised him as the first native Hebrew speaker in modern times. They refused to let him hear any other language, even from visitors or neighbors. It was a lonely childhood, but Ben Zion became a living proof that Hebrew could be reborn. Eliezer worked tirelessly. He wrote textbooks and dictionaries, inventing new words for the modern world. He founded newspapers in Hebrew, filling their pages with news, stories, and debates. He persuaded teachers to use Hebrew in the classroom, and he argued with rabbis and scholars who believed the language should remain sacred. Slowly, the dream began to spread. Other families joined Eliezer, raising their children in Hebrew. Schools opened where lessons were taught in the ancient tongue. Writers and poets began to create new works in Hebrew, their words breathing life into the language. The streets of Jerusalem echoed with the sound of children playing in Hebrew, their laughter a song of renewal. The revival of Hebrew was not just the work of one man. It was a movement, a chorus of voices, each adding a note to the melody. Teachers, writers, and activists across the land joined the cause. In the new Jewish settlements, Petah Tikva, Rishon, LeZion, and others, Hebrew became the language of work and community. Farmers learned the words for plow and harvest. doctors for medicine and hospital, children for butterfly and kite. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that bring history's greatest mysteries to life. The journey was not easy. There were arguments and setbacks, moments of doubt and despair. Some clung to Yiddish or Ladino, the languages of their childhoods. Others feared that Hebrew would lose its holiness if used for everyday life. But the dream endured, carried by the hope of a people longing for home. In the early 20th century, the world was shaken by war and revolution. The First World War brought hardship and loss, but also new opportunities. The British took control of Palestine, and Jewish immigration increased. The Hebrew language found new champions, teachers, poets, and leaders who believed in its power to unite a scattered people. In the year 1922, the British authorities recognized Hebrew as one of the official languages of the land. Street signs, government documents, and newspapers appeared in Hebrew. The language was no longer just a dream, it was a living reality. Eliezer Ben-Yehuda did not live to see the full flowering of his vision. He died in the year 1922, his work unfinished but his dream alive. His son, Ben Zion, became a writer and scholar, carrying on his father's legacy. The movement grew, and Hebrew became the language of a new generation. In the year 1948, the State of Israel was born. On the day of its declaration, David Ben-Gurion read the proclamation in Hebrew, his voice echoing across the world. The language that had once been silent now rang out in schools, homes, and government halls. Children learned Hebrew as their first language, and poets wrote of love and loss in words that had once been reserved for prayer. The revival of Hebrew is one of the most remarkable stories in human history. It is the story of a language brought back from the edge of silence, of a people reclaiming their voice. It is a story of determination, of faith, and of the belief that words can shape the world. Today, Hebrew is spoken by millions in Israel and around the globe. It is the language of science and technology, of music and film, of everyday life and ancient ritual. The words of the prophets mingle with the slang of teenagers, the prayers of the past with the dreams of the future. But the story is not just about language. It is about identity, the sense of belonging that comes from speaking the words of your ancestors. It is about connection, the bond between generations, between past and present, between people scattered across the world. It is about hope, the hope that, no matter how long a dream may sleep, it can be awakened by those who believe. So, the next time you hear Hebrew spoken, remember the journey that brought it back to life. Remember Eliezer Ben-Yehuda and his family, the teachers and children, the poets and dreamers. Remember that history is not just made by battles and treaties, but by the quiet courage of those who refuse to let go of what matters most. The revival of Hebrew is a living story, a testament to the power of words, the strength of community, and the enduring spirit of a people who would not be silenced. If you enjoyed this journey into the heart of language and identity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. There are more stories waiting to be told right here.